The warrior did not fall because his blade was dull. He fell because he mistook exhaustion for failure. There is a moment every disciplined soul reaches, when silence feels heavy, when presence demands more than comfort is willing to give, when the mind whispers, "You are broken." But ancient warriors knew something modern men forget. A tired mind is not a weak mind. It is a mind that has been carrying weight without rest. In the old monasteries of Japan, masters did not ask their students to fight harder when they faltered. They asked them to stand still, to breathe, to listen, to notice what fear does when it is no longer obeyed. This story is not about collapse. It is about misinterpretation. Fear dresses itself as weakness. Ego rushes to judge. Discipline quietly waits. Through the path of a wandering warrior and the words of a silent mentor, this film explores an ancient system of strength, one built not on force, but on presence. If your mind feels tired, you are not losing the battle. You are standing at the threshold of transformation. Chapter 1: When the warrior mistakes fatigue for defeat. The warrior had walked this path longer than most men dared. Before sunrise, before comfort, before excuses. His body already moving, his breath already disciplined, his mind trained to obey command. Years of repetition had shaped him, footsteps measured, posture precise, silence respected like law. And yet, now something was different. Not in the muscles, not in the blade, but behind the eyes. His movements were still correct, but no longer effortless. His breath still deep but heavier. Presence, once sharp as steel, now flickered like a candle in wind. He told himself it was nothing. Then he told himself it was everything. This is how fear enters disciplined men. Not loudly, not violently, but disguised as logic. You are losing your edge. Others are stronger now. Something inside you is breaking. The warrior believed the voice because he had never heard it before. On the training ground, his blade paused for a fraction of a second too long. Not enough for others to notice, but enough for him. In stillness practice, his thoughts refused to settle. Silence, once a refuge, became crowded. Ego leaned forward, impatient, demanding answers. Ancient warriors feared many things: death, dishonor, failure in battle. But the most dangerous fear was this one: the belief that discipline had stopped working. Modern psychology would call this cognitive distortion, the mind mislabeling fatigue as incapacity. Neuroscience confirms it. When the prefrontal cortex is overworked, perception narrows, self-criticism intensifies, and threat detection systems overfire. But the ancient system did not use such language. It used observation. A tired mind loses perspective before it loses strength. Yet the warrior did not know this. All he knew was the heaviness. So he trained harder. Longer hours, less rest, sharper self-talk. This is where many disciplined men collapse, not from weakness, but from misinterpretation. The body can signal exhaustion with pain. The mind signals it with doubt. The warrior mistook the signal for a verdict. He began watching himself too closely. Every hesitation became evidence. Every wandering thought a flaw. Presence fractured under scrutiny. Ego thrives in this environment. It feeds on comparison, on imagined decline, on the silent terror of falling behind an invisible standard. And so the war began, not with an enemy across the field, but within the chest. Ancient texts warned of this moment. They described it without drama. When the spirit grows quiet, the untrained mind panics. The warrior stood one evening at the edge of the training hall. The sun was low. Shadows stretched long, patient, unmoving. He felt the urge to leave, not to quit forever, just to escape the weight of presence for one night. This urge frightened him more than exhaustion ever had, because discipline was his identity. And now discipline felt heavy. He did not realize it yet, but this was not collapse. It was the threshold. Fatigue was not the enemy. Fear was interpreting it. The ancient system had a response for this moment. But the warrior had not been taught it yet. He would not find it by pushing forward. He would find it by standing still. And it was in stillness, where effort no longer masked fear, that the mentor finally appeared. That night, the warrior did not sleep deeply. Not because his body resisted rest, but because his mind refused permission. Thoughts arrived like uninvited guests. Memories of sharper days, comparisons to men he once surpassed. questions that circled without answer. This is the hidden cost of discipline without interpretation. When effort continues but understanding lags behind, the mind fills the gap with judgment. Ancient warriors observed this pattern closely. They knew that when the nervous system is overextended, the mind seeks certainty, even if that certainty is cruel. By morning, the warrior felt hollow rather than tired. His limbs moved, but his spirit lagged behind, as if something essential had been left behind in the dark. He returned to training out of habit. Ritual is comforting when clarity fades. The courtyard was quiet. Wind brushed against hanging banners. Dust rose and settled again, undisturbed. He assumed his stance, lifted the blade, and for the first time in years, his hands trembled, not violently, not visibly, just enough for him to notice. Fear tightened its grip. The warrior lowered the sword and closed his eyes, attempting the breathing practice he had mastered long ago. Inhale, counted. Exhale, controlled. But the breath felt forced, mechanical, empty. Modern science explains this moment precisely. Under prolonged mental strain, the autonomic nervous system shifts into vigilance. The body prepares for threat, not learning. Presence becomes effortful. Stillness feels unsafe. The ancient system knew this without instruments. It simply said, when the breath no longer listens, the spirit is asking for a pause. But the warrior resisted that truth. Pause felt like retreat. Stillness felt like surrender. Ego does not fear effort. Ego fears silence, because silence removes its narrative. So he did what disciplined men often do when lost. He blamed himself. You are undisciplined. You have grown soft. This is weakness. Each thought drained him further, and yet beneath the noise, something quieter waited, a subtle knowing. Not loud enough to argue, not forceful enough to command, just present. It was the same presence that had guided him for years, now buried beneath fatigue and fear. The warrior sat down, not in meditation, but in exhaustion. His back leaned against the wooden pillar. The blade rested beside him. For the first time, he did not correct his thoughts. He did not chase them away. He did not discipline his attention. He simply observed. And slowly, the thoughts lost urgency. Neuroscience would call this downregulation, the parasympathetic system reclaiming balance. Threat signals softening when no longer fed resistance. The ancient system called it something else, returning to the ground. Minutes passed, perhaps longer. The warrior's breath deepened without instruction. The tremor in his hands faded. The heaviness did not vanish, but it softened. In that moment, a realization surfaced, not as words, but as understanding. Nothing was broken. Nothing had been lost. The mind was tired because it had been carrying too much alone. Discipline had remained intact. Strength had not diminished. Only interpretation had failed. This was not the end of the path. It was a misread signpost. The warrior rose slowly, not energized, not renewed, but steadier. He did not resume training that day. He walked instead, without destination, without urgency. Ancient masters designed this intentionally. Movement without aim restores presence without pressure. As the sun lowered again, the warrior felt it. A shift, subtle, but unmistakable. Someone had been watching, not with judgment, not with concern, with understanding. And it was then, when the warrior stopped trying to fix himself, that the mentor chose to speak through silence. Chapter 2, The Mentor Who Spoke Through Silence. The warrior sensed him before he saw him. Not through sound, not through movement, but through a shift in the air, the way presence changes when another grounded spirit enters the field. The mentor stood beneath the cedar tree at the edge of the path. No weapon visible, no posture of authority, no sign of urgency, just stillness. The warrior bowed instinctively. Years of discipline recognized something older than rank. The mentor did not return the bow. He did not speak. He did not gesture. He simply waited. This unsettled the warrior more than any command could have. Silence, when unchosen, reveals impatience. It exposes the restless hunger of the ego, the need to perform, to explain, to be assessed. Minutes passed. The warrior shifted his weight, then stilled himself again. Finally, unable to endure the quiet, he spoke. My discipline is failing. The mentor's eyes did not change. His breath did not deepen. He waited, as if the words had not yet finished arriving. The warrior continued, filling the space. My focus breaks, my spirit feels heavy. I train harder, but it does not lift. The mentor nodded once, not in agreement, but in recognition. Then softly, almost indifferently, he said, "You are mistaking noise for damage." The warrior frowned. He had expected instruction, correction, a technique. Instead, he received a mirror. The mentor gestured toward the ground. They sat. Wind moved through the leaves above them. A distant bell echoed once, then disappeared. "Tell me," the mentor said, "when the river slows, do you accuse it of weakness?" The question struck something deep. "No," the warrior answered. "Then why do you accuse your mind?" The mentor's voice was calm but precise, each word placed deliberately, like stones across water. Modern science would later give language to this truth. Mental fatigue amplifies internal noise, not because capacity is gone, but because regulatory systems are overloaded. The brain, deprived of rest, defaults to threat detection. Fear speaks louder, not because it is stronger, but because everything else is tired. The mentor knew this without scans or studies. When effort continues without rhythm, he said, attention fractures, ego fills the cracks. The warrior listened, not as a student seeking approval, but as a man desperate for orientation. "I did not teach you to conquer your thoughts," the mentor continued. "I taught you to observe them. You have forgotten the difference." The warrior lowered his gaze. Discipline, he realized, had slowly turned into force, presence into pressure, silence into a task to complete. The mentor placed a hand on the ground. "Strength," he said, "is not the ability to endure endlessly. It is the wisdom to stop resisting what is already here." This defied everything the warrior believed. Endurance was his identity, control his armor. Yet something in him recognized the truth, not intellectually, but somatically. His shoulders eased, his breath slowed. The mentor noticed. When the mind is rested, he said, fear whispers. When the mind is drained, fear commands. Ego panics when it senses loss of control. It labels rest as danger, stillness as failure. Ancient systems anticipated this. They built recovery into discipline, not as retreat, but as calibration. "You have been sharpening a blade that does not need sharpening," the mentor said. "What it needs is alignment." Silence followed again. This time the warrior did not rush to escape it. For the first time in many days, stillness did not feel like an enemy. It felt like medicine. And as the warrior learned to sit within silence without judgment, the ancient system began to reveal its deeper precision. They returned to the same place each morning after that, not to train, not to speak, to sit. The mentor never corrected the warrior's posture, never timed his breath, never asked what he felt. This absence of instruction was deliberate. In ancient systems of mastery, the mentor does not shape the student. He removes interference so the student can feel what is already true. At first, the warrior's mind rebelled. Thoughts surged the moment he closed his eyes. Unfinished battles, imagined failures, comparisons he had long suppressed. The nervous system, accustomed to constant output, resisted stillness. Modern science calls this rebound effect. When control relaxes, suppressed signals resurface. The mentor called it the mind emptying its pockets. "Do nothing," he said once, then fell silent again. The warrior wanted to ask questions. He wanted a method, a metric. Ego searches for progress. Presence dissolves the need for it. Days passed. Something subtle began to change. The thoughts still appeared, but they no longer hooked him. Fear spoke, but without urgency. The body, no longer forced, recalibrated its rhythm. The mentor observed without comment. One evening, as the sun dipped low and painted the ground in amber light, the mentor finally spoke again. "You have learned to endure pain," he said. "But endurance without awareness creates blindness." He drew a line in the dust with his finger. "Discipline," he continued, "is not a weapon. It is a structure that protects clarity. When discipline turns against the self, clarity collapses. This, the mentor explained, is where ego hides, behind self-criticism disguised as rigor. Modern psychology confirms this ancient warning. Excessive self-monitoring depletes cognitive resources. Attention narrows, creativity fades, judgment becomes harsh. The warrior saw it now, how he had been watching himself instead of inhabiting himself. performing presence rather than being present. The mentor stood. "Walk," he said. "No goal, no speed." They moved through the forest path together. Leaves cracked softly beneath their feet. Birdsong came and went. The warrior noticed things he had not in years: the texture of bark, the uneven pull of the ground, the way breath adjusted naturally without command. This was still training, but not the kind that drained. "This is alignment," the mentor said. "When mind, body, and rhythm cooperate, effort decreases and strength returns." The warrior felt it. A quiet restoration. Not excitement, not motivation. Stability. The mentor stopped near a stream. "Remember this," he said. "When the spirit feels heavy, do not ask what is wrong with you. Ask what you have refused to listen to." Silence returned, but now it carried meaning. The mentor turned away, leaving the warrior alone again. But something fundamental had shifted. The warrior was no longer afraid of tiredness. He recognized it as a message, not a verdict. Discipline was no longer punishment. It was guidance. Stillness was no longer avoidance. It was refinement. The ancient system had not changed. The warrior's relationship to it had. As night settled and the first stars emerged, the warrior understood. Mastery was not about relentless forward motion. It was about knowing when to stop pushing, without ever leaving the path. And with this new understanding, the warrior would soon face the final test, not of effort, but of integration. Chapter 3. Restoring the spirit without abandoning the path. The warrior returned to training, but nothing looked the same. The courtyard was unchanged. The same stones, the same worn wooden posts, the same echo of footsteps carried by morning air. Yet his relationship to it had shifted. Before, discipline had been a demand, a voice that pressed forward regardless of condition. Now discipline felt like a dialogue. He began with stillness, not as a ritual to complete, but as a condition to check. He stood with the blade lowered, eyes open, breath unforced. He did not rush to correct posture. He allowed the body to find balance on its own. Modern science would call this interoceptive awareness, the nervous system recalibrating when attention returns inward without judgment. The ancient system simply called it listening. The warrior noticed subtle signals he had long overridden. Tightness in the jaw, a shallow breath after exertion. The moment attention began to drift. Instead of forcing through, he paused. This was not laziness. It was precision. When he moved again, the motion was slower but cleaner. Less tension in the shoulders, less noise in the mind. Fear did not disappear, but it no longer commanded urgency. Ego still spoke, but its voice had softened. This is what true discipline does. It trains discernment, not domination. The warrior practiced form without chasing perfection. Each movement became an inquiry rather than a test. Where am I tense? Where am I forcing? Where can I release without losing structure? The answers arrived through sensation, not thought. Ancient masters designed training this way because they understood a truth modern culture often ignores. Tension consumes energy faster than effort. By midday, the warrior felt something unfamiliar. Not exhaustion, but readiness. His body felt used, not drained. His mind alert, not strained. He remembered the mentor's words. When mind, body, and rhythm cooperate, effort decreases and strength returns. The warrior tested this insight in controlled sparring. Where he once relied on speed and aggression, he now waited. Presence sharpened timing. Stillness clarified intent. He moved only when necessary. The opponent's strikes felt louder now, predictable, rushed. Fear was visible in others. In himself, it remained quiet. Neuroscience confirms this shift. When the prefrontal cortex is no longer overloaded, reaction time improves. Decision-making stabilizes. Emotional regulation strengthens. The warrior did not need the science to feel it. He felt grounded. Training sessions shortened, but impact deepened. Rest was no longer guilt-ridden. It was integrated. At night, sleep returned without struggle. The mind, no longer carrying constant self-surveillance, released naturally. This was not comfort. The path was still demanding, but it no longer extracted violence from the self. The warrior realized something essential. He had not lost discipline during his fatigue. He had lost trust. Trust in rhythm. Trust in recovery. trust in silence. Now that trust was returning, slowly, steadily. The blade had not changed. The warrior had, and as discipline transformed from pressure into alignment, the warrior stepped into a final understanding, one that would redefine mastery itself. The final test did not arrive as a battle. It came as an ordinary morning. Mist rested low over the ground. The air was cool, neither inviting nor harsh. The kind of day that reveals nothing dramatic, and therefore everything true. The warrior stood alone before the path, blade at his side. No urgency pulled him forward. No fear pushed from behind. This neutrality was new. In the past, he had relied on tension to move, pressure to begin, force to continue. Now movement arose from readiness. He stepped forward. Each footfall was deliberate but unstrained. Breath synchronized without command. The mind stayed present without effort. This is the stage ancient texts described as quiet strength. Not passive, not aggressive. Aligned. Modern science would describe it as neural efficiency, when unnecessary muscular tension drops, when attention stabilizes, when the nervous system operates without internal conflict. The ancient system had simpler language. The warrior and the path become one motion. Along the way, memories surfaced. The nights of doubt, the self-judgment, the fear of decline, they passed through him without resistance. This was mastery, not the absence of fear, but the absence of struggle with it. The warrior encountered younger trainees along the path. Their movements were fast, their effort loud. He recognized his former self in them, but he did not correct them. The mentor had taught him that wisdom cannot be transferred, only demonstrated. So he walked on. Later he returned to the place beneath the cedar tree. The mentor was not there. He had never needed to be. The teachings had already moved inward. The warrior sat in silence one final time, not to recover, not to repair, but to acknowledge. He saw clearly now. Discipline is not endurance without rest. Strength is not the absence of fatigue. Mastery is not domination of the self. True mastery is relationship. A relationship with effort, with rest, with fear, with silence. When the mind grows tired, it is not asking to be judged. It is asking to be heard. The warrior stood. The path stretched forward, unchanged, unending, demanding. But it no longer felt heavy. He moved with presence. He trained with care. He rested without guilt. This was not the end of discipline. It was its refinement. The ancient system had done its work, not by adding more, but by removing what was unnecessary. As the sun climbed higher, the warrior disappeared into the distance. Not louder, not faster, stronger. Because he had learned what most never do. A tired mind is not weak. It is ready, ready to evolve, ready to integrate, ready to master without breaking. A tired mind does not signal weakness. It signals a warrior ready to evolve into true mastery.